Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Brothers and sisters, welcome to the Encounter program sponsored by the Broome County Council of Churches. I'm your host, Mark Kimpland, the pastor at the Endwell United Methodist Church. I find myself in my office this morning and the sun is shining, and as I look at my calendar, we are in spring, and that can only mean one thing, our preparation for summer camp. And so I'd like to dive right into our show this morning, and it's my honor and privilege to introduce and reintroduce a veteran to our Encounter program. Our guest this morning is Matt Williams, Director of Sky Lake Camp and Retreat Center. Matt, welcome back to the show. I'm glad you're with us this morning.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. I'd like to start here, Matt, if we can, because boy, there's lots we have to kind of get through regarding the pandemic, past, present, and future, as to how that affects everything that you're doing and the wonderful work you do at Sky Lake. But I guess I'd like to just start with your background in the camping ministry and what brought you and gave you the passion to want to do this and to be a part of this wonderful ministry together. So if you could share for a little bit about your background and how that all came to be.
Absolutely. So when I was in elementary school, a friend invited me to go to camp with him. I said no. He invited me again. I said no. He invited me again, and I finally came. And I'm glad I did. That was a great experience for me as a youngest only child. It was great to learn how to live with other people my own age and not just with older siblings who were no longer at home. Mm-hmm. And I just kept coming back summer after summer after summer. And then when I was in high school, I became what we now call a SNAP, Special Needs Assistant Personnel. And then I joined summer staff and have spent every summer at Sky Lake since then, including pandemic summer. But we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So then I got done with college, and lo and behold, the program director position was open. So I went out on a limb and applied for that in 2000, and I've been here ever since. In 2015, when our beloved former executive director, Jim Krager, retired, I stepped into that role and have been in role of the director since. And I think one of the things that keeps drawing me to this place is the community. Yes, the grounds are beautiful. It's as a former camper once said, it's easy to talk to God here. And you know, it's just regardless of what season we're in, it's just a place where I feel calm. Even in the hecticness of being the camp director,
Sure.
Sometimes the stress of that, but it helps calm me. But it's really the community, the friendships that I've made with a variety of ages and abilities that really speaks to the powerful effect that this ministry has on people. So I'm both a product of Sky Lake and someone who helps that legacy live on.
Yeah. Oh, no one but that. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. And perhaps yourself also, as we look back over this past year, the date that really comes to mind to me was March 22nd of last year, because that was the first time that we closed our sanctuary to in-person worship. Who would have known that the Sunday before that, all of those connecting the dots in the pandemic world. Can you take us back perhaps maybe last March or maybe before, a little bit after that? How did that all unfold at Sky Lake?
So going back even a little bit further than that, in February of last year, we had opened up registration for summer camp. And we were looking at having one of the best summers we've had in a long time. There was a lot of excitement. We had a lot of registrations coming in. It was just like, 2020 is going to be such a great year. We're going to see so many awesome campers. And then I was on a trip out west for a friend's wedding, and the gentleman in the seat behind me on the flight out of Seattle was mentioning something about this virus that was going around, and how the airline was ceasing flights to mainland China. And I was like, something's going on. Yeah. And so we were kind of paying attention to it, thinking, this is something that's going to last a few weeks. So then March comes along, and it's like, and as we looked at it, we thought, okay, we'll kind of quiet things down for a month or two, and we'll be ready to go for summer camp. And then for us, it was March 15th was the last time we had a group on site for months. And it was that afternoon that I was speaking with our volunteer hosts and thinking, we're heading into what looks like to be a lockdown of sorts. We had been paying attention to what had been happening in Italy and other European countries, thinking, this is coming for us. And so the three of us were talking, and I said, you know what we could use? We could all use a campfire. And so in that moment, I decided that evening I was going to do a pop-up campfire live from here at Founders Lodge at Sky Lake, do some singing as we like to do around the campfire here at camp. And that for a year became a weekly occurrence. So that was that aspect of coming to grips with what the pandemic was bringing our way. But it was also making decisions about the safety of guests and not being able to fully accommodate them for several months. And so it was like, okay, we have this ministry. We want to, our mission is to connect to God with people and with God's creation. Yeah. And one of the ways that we live that out is through food. Food is a very important part here at camp. Yes. A shared table. And we realized we weren't going to be able to sit down at a table together, but we sure could share some baked goods with people. So we're really fortunate to have a phenomenal cook and baker and our food service manager, Kevin Hester. And so he and I were chatting one day, and he's like, we should do a bake sale. We were kind of inspired by our sibling camp out in Western New York, Asbury Retreat Center, who had been doing drive-through meals. So I checked with our folks at the Broome County Department of Health, and they gave the green light to us doing bake sales. And we thought, okay, this will last us through the spring. It gives us something to do. It generates some revenue. We're still doing bake sales. Because even we realized even that when we're able to move into the new reality, it's something that we have really enjoyed doing.
Yes.
And it turns out we really like Kevin's baked goods. So
yes.
That's one of the great things, I guess, that has come out of the pandemic is it forced us into being creative. And many of the creative things that we started, we can continue. We may have to modify. We're still going to do our campfires on Sunday evenings, but we're going to kind of stick to one Sunday a month, and that's going to be the second Sunday.
Okay.
And that way we can continue this and continue connecting people in new and exciting ways, even when they can't physically be present on the site.
Yes.
And then we learned that we could do some family retreats last summer. So after we made the heartbreaking decision to suspend summer programs last year for campers, in which we take custodial care, we realized that we could do some programming for families, and they were built as an individual standalone retreat. We offered a food service option, and we had the waterfront available, all under special guidance from the Department of Health. And families just loved those experiences. And most of those families have been like, hey, can we do that again this year? And we're like, yes, let's get summer camp solidified, and then we can start building around that. And so we look forward to being able to continuing offering those. And what was great about those retreat experiences is that families didn't have to stick to any schedule. They could take part in the daily theme kits that we provided them, but they didn't have to if they didn't want to. They could just go outside and be in God's presence.
Sure.
That was a nice kind of laid back opportunity for families to just reconnect with themselves while being in a place that helps them reconnect with God.
Absolutely. Friends, we have the honor and the privilege today to be with Matt Williams, who's the director of Skylake Camp and Retreat Center, kind of talking about what the last year has been like as we look forward to go ahead. But let me ask you this, Matt. Either spiritually or theologically or very practically, what lessons have you learned, either as the camp director or as a child of God over the past year during this pandemic? Because I love asking that question because it forces me to answer it myself. What are there truths? Are there discoveries? Are there revelations? What have you learned throughout that time?
I think one of the big takeaways for me personally, and maybe professionally too, is that God is with us. And that's a phrase that we sometimes feel like we throw around a little nonchalantly, but it really has felt that God has been walking this journey with us. There have been many moments where it's just like, I don't know if I can go any further. It's just kind of that overwhelming sense. And yet, God sends someone or something as a reminder that nope, we're in this together, and we're gonna move forward. There have been moments where financial strain has been tough, and yet somehow we've been able to find a way to continue moving forward. Whether it was something as simple as the PPP loan, never thought that a financial program from a government entity could help us be reliant upon God, but that is indeed what it felt like. It wasn't just a loan; it was a life vest for us. It helped keep everyone afloat as we were going down this river of COVID pandemic. I think another thing is that God expects us to take ourselves seriously, but not too seriously. I think it's been a wake-up call for a lot of us that we were so busy. And it just has helped us slow down and reflect on what is truly important to us. I think our campfires have been indicative of this. The way we've been able to remain connected with people throughout I call it the camp diaspora. We've reconnected with campers from around the world. Is that we wouldn't have normally had the opportunity to connect with. And so that's the great thing about being a part of a community like this.
One of the fascinating things to see around this pandemic is the new creativeness and createdness, and hopefully, as we move forward, not that hurriedness to just get back to the good old days as things were, but there has to be a meshing of both. And it'll be so interesting in all of our lives and our ministries as to how we wade through that. Those things we keep, those things we don't, those things we modify, those things we change. And I'm sure you're finding that in the camping ministry also.
Absolutely. And one of the things we did last spring, we have a song that we sing called Alleluia. And, it has a bunch of motions, shake a friend's hand. Well, that wasn't going to work. And so we crowdsourced new lyrics for the song. And it's one of those I don't think we'll ever go back to the original lyrics. Like the new ones are kind of fun. And even when we're able to hug one another again, I think this is probably a healthier version of that, slap a virtual, slap a 5 in the air. give a virtual hug. That's continuing the past while moving into the future.
Yes.
And if we just hurry back to the past, I'm afraid that we lose touch with this new opportunity that God is calling us into.
Yeah. Yeah. This will be a very interesting journey for so many of us to how we wade through that and what that actually becomes and such. So let me ask this. Again, we are with Matt Williams, the director of Sky Lake Camp and Retreat Center. So where do things stand now? Here we are, the beginning of spring, about a week and a half or so away from Easter and that busy time for everyone, especially for you in preparation for summer camp. Where do things stand? What can you tell our listeners and viewers as to where we are at Sky Lake?
Well, we're kind of in a holding pattern.
Okay.
If you've ever flown into a busy airport, sometimes you have to keep circling around the airport and circling around the airport, and you see the airport and you're going to land, but you keep going around in circles. And it feels a little bit like that. We know that we will be able to get a permit to operate as a camp this summer. So we're really looking forward to having campers back on site. We have an idea of what that might look like, but we're still waiting for some clarification from the New York State Department of Health as to what the final guidelines are going to be. But what we anticipate is that we'll do 3 weeks of residential camp for our friends with special needs, and then follow that up with 3 weeks of camping opportunities for our children and youth to come and kind of reconnect with one another and to be in an environment in which they can be around their peers without being in an educational setting. And we know that there are aspects of our routine summer experience that we'll have to kind of place to the side for one season. But having talked with a number of moms, our focus will be on just letting campers be campers for a moment. And not filling their day with lots of activities, but just giving them the opportunity to be in those small groups that we're already used to. We have operated as a mostly decentralized camping model for the entirety of our history, which means that we have small groups as baked into our camp DNA, which makes it easier to go. We are members of the American Camp Association, and they contracted with a environmental health company out of Boston that has provided some really great guidelines for how we can do camp safely. And one of their recommendations was to do small cohorts. So our what we call our family groups will be just a little bit smaller than we're used to, but it's still within the realm of what we're used to. And so we can go swimming and boating and go on hikes and play non-contact games and probably still do a camp dance with all line dances probably. We can hopefully spread out in whatever outdoor space we have available, and probably do some singing. Singing is an important part. Campfires, we can still do some modified cookouts. It's about modification, but ultimately it's just about helping relieve the anxiety of our campers, and by extension, giving parents a break.
Amen. Yes.
Some of the moms have been like, I don't care what you do with my kids. I love them and I'm ready for them to be at camp. And I was like, I hear you.
Loud and clear.
So we're hoping that within the next few weeks, we'll have a bit more clarity, and that we'll be able to open up registration for our summer camp experiences.
Where do you see the greatest amount of need for that modification? Is it in the housing? Is it in meals? Is it if you as you look at the big picture, where do you see most of that modification coming?
We're fortunate in that our facilities are pretty much designed for decentralized camping. A couple of our sibling camps in Upper New York, and even with our collaborative partners in Susquehanna, their facilities are built more for centralized camping. So our friends at Kasuasko, that's the model that's used there, because that's how the facilities were built. So it's a challenge, but they're up for it. Whereas we're able to make use of smaller cabins because we have smaller cabins. We anticipate that we'll have a bunch of party tents where our family groups will hang out, and that will also be their dining space. And they'll kind of be their own little bubble for the week. When they're in their living quarters, we anticipate that they won't have to wear masks. When they're out of their living quarters interacting with any other group, they'll have to have masks on, which, we're kind of used to masks at this point. It's like, okay, we can do camp, we can do tie-dye face masks.
There you go.
Like that, if nothing else comes out of the pandemic, it will be tie-dye face masks. But just being able to gather at camp again is exciting for us, and we'll get through the modifications. It's what we'll do so that we can continue to serve children, youth, and persons with special needs during the summer, and also families, and individuals for that matter.
Well, it's exciting and I'm glad to hear that the idea is just to kind of bring them back together, just so that they can be kids and youth again, and without all the demands or agendas or schedules and such. Because and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I mean, you'll be with a bunch of zoomed out kids, and youth. I see that in my youth group. We have returned to in-person gatherings, social distance and all that, and they would rather be 15 feet apart, one in each corner, rather than be on the Brady Bunch screen, zooming one another. So that's so let me ask you this, because and I'm sure you're getting this question a lot. What would you recommend to families now as you're going around the airport again and such things? What's your recommendation to them via registration, or what kind of words of encouragement or process could you give families that might be anticipating coming to Sky Lake this summer?
So the first thing is that families of campers who were registered over the past 2 years, including last year, we had a number of families that had already registered for camp when we decided to suspend the programs. They'll be contacted first and given kind of the first opportunity to register for camp. We do anticipate that registrations will be greatly scaled back, so that there will be, because we only have so much bed space. And so then when that happens, we'll also be providing a packet of what families can expect at camp, according to the guidelines and according to kind of how we do things at camp. We want to make sure that we're as upfront with families as possible. The other thing that is going to be a little different than in the past is being able to be far more generous with the refund policy. So we are committed to making sure that families can kind of back out of camp until the end of check-in on check-in day, and receive a full refund. Usually we keep a deposit or something like that, but if it's for COVID-related reasons, we really want to make sure that families feel comfortable sending their precious loved ones to camp. And we want to make sure that their precious loved ones are healthy enough to be at camp. So we don't want to put any stumbling block in front of anyone who may not be feeling well, but like, we can't miss out on all that money that we've already spent. So we want to kind of be gracious both ways. And then, prorate it if please. Side note, we have a number of colleagues who were in other states who were able to do summer camp last summer, and they kind of have blazed a trail for all of the rest of us. But we also realize that one of the things we need to be able to do is kind of send an entire cohort home all at once in case there has been exposure. And so we've developed refund policies kind of prorated. So if we get to Tuesday afternoon and we discover that one of our campers has COVID, then we'll send the entire group home, and families will receive
Okay.
prorated refund.
So,
Check-in will probably be a little bit different. Pickup will be a little bit different, but we're going to make it camp fun. So, hey.
Yeah, it's camp.
Yeah. We're nothing if not flexible.
Yeah. What's not the load? So would you advise that then parents that were registered for last year that could not go, those campers and such things, you will be contacting them first then?
Yep.
Okay. And so they should just sit tight to hear from Sky Lake then? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
And then once we'll probably give them a week to register before we open it up to the general public. And that way everyone else can register, and
Okay.
I anticipate once we open it up, we'll probably fill up pretty quickly.
Yeah, sure you will. Good.
But we will blast our social media. We have an email list that people can subscribe to. So when it's ready, people will know.
They'll know. Well, our time is coming to a close. Unfortunately, Matt, is there in about 15 or 30 seconds, is there anything else you want to share with our viewers and listeners about the excitement of Sky Lake?
We still have ice on the lake, but that doesn't mean that we aren't ready for summer. And we are ready for summer after this winter. So.
Oh boy, aren't we all? Aren't we all? So, well, thank you so much for sharing your input, your expertise, your experience, but most of all, your love for all of God's children. And your love for God. It is who you are, and I appreciate that so much, Matt. Thanks for joining us. Absolutely. So, friends, we have shared this experience with Matt Williams, the director of the Sky Lake Camp and Retreat Center. I thank you for joining us, and I hope all of you have a glorious Easter, and may God be with you, and may God's peace lead you in all that you do. Have an awesome day.